Welcome to episode 837 of Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight I'm sharing experiences, true paranormal stories from the web. As always, you can find all episodes of the show along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And there are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others and like and review it. You can also sign up for the Patreon feed and get extra shows for as little as $1 a month. And also, you can check out the merchandise store and find all kinds of shirts and other items, including coffee mugs. That's the most recent addition to the merchandise store, with designs on all those items made by friends of the show. Also, please check out the links to friends of the show in every episode description. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, and her own channel, and she is also the co-host of this show on the weekends, on Saturdays. And then also please check out Michael Strange's show and the radio network. That'd be uh, Trouble Minds Radio and the Trouble Minds Radio Network, KUAP, Digital Broadcasting, where you can find all kinds of amazing shows as well as my own that play 24/7. And I believe that takes care of everything, so let's get to these true stories here and see how many we can get through. And thank you all for being here and listening in. So, let me get back to my document. This first one says about 4 years ago, when my girlfriend and I started dating, we went to her cousin's house for a party. This was the first time I had met them, and first time going over to their house. Later in the night, we were all sitting in the living room talking, and her cousin was showing me some movie and comic book stuff he had collected. There were balloons all over the place for decoration, at, uh, but they were all against the ceiling, except for one. It was just floating there, and one of the guests, G, we'll say, noticed it and decided to say, if there's someone here, move that balloon over to H, another person there. We all watched as the balloon moved over and floated above his head. G then said, okay, now move over to K. And it did. We were all just sitting there, watching it. No one said anything, or pulled their phones out to record it. After what seemed like hours, but it was really seconds, the balloon headed towards the door and stopped, and then it lowered itself to fly out of the open door. We were all shocked and scared, but mostly we were just asking ourselves if that really just happened. Later on, when I was playing games with her cousin, I had asked him how haunted his house was, and so far he said there's at least 4 ghosts. There's an old lady that wanders around the living room and middle area of the house. She's harmless from what he told me. She just sits on the couch and walks around. My friend isn't sure what it is, but there's a ghost that runs up and down the stairs of his home. There's a ghost that moves stuff around and runs around at night or when his brother isn't home. My friend isn't sure what's in the basement, but he said it's always a weird feeling down there. One time he heard something hissing in his ear when he was doing laundry, and that's where that one ends. That's a lot of activity. Uh, the hissing, I always wonder about that. Could that be something in the houses systems and everything. When you hear weird noises in the basement, it's I think you have to consider the stuff that's down there, all the plumbing, all the electricity, all the whatever. But it still could have also been something unexplained. But even without that, that's a lot of activity. And the balloon, there's every so often I find one of these accounts of an experience with a balloon that moves, seems to move on its own. And it's amazing to me because that to me shows possibly some kind of intelligence that is using the balloon to make themselves known somehow. They it seems like they realize that people can't see them, so they decide to use a balloon. And I've shared accounts of this before, not just in homes, but I had one. I forget now how long ago it was. One of the previous episodes, experiences episodes, we had an account of someone who saw a balloon moving around on its own, at least as far as it appeared. But it was in a hospital. So these kinds of experiences with balloons are uh, they're not unheard of. They're not uh, just one-offs or things like that. They do happen here and there. So it's really amazing. And then you had to add on all these other things in that house. Like I said, it just sounds like an active location. This next one says, I was with my older sister and little brother. We were playing in a makeshift treehouse we built. It was only the floor of the treehouse, so it was just a flat deck, basically, in a tall tree. We decided to attach an old slide to it for more fun. All three of us decided we are going to go down the slide together. I was uh, I was in the back. My sister was in the middle, and my little brother was up front. We kept scooting back further and further so we would actually fit on the slide. I sat on a loose board and I went through the floor. I was falling headfirst toward the ground when I felt a cold hand grab my ankle and yank me toward the tree. I abruptly stopped with both of my feet caught on a branch. My head stopped about 8 inches from the ground. I looked and there was a red hand mark, there we go, on my ankle where I felt something grab me. To this day, I have no idea why the ghost saved me, but I am grateful. And that's where that one ends. That is amazing uh, to have that experience. And I've heard of similar accounts of people. Um, I've shared them on the show before. I found them here and there where people have no idea there's anything weird going on in the area, and there is nothing until something happens and they're in danger. And obviously, this doesn't happen in every situation for every person, but for whatever reason, whether it's just because someone else is there that the people there don't see, or there's a purpose behind it, sometimes people get saved like this in other ways uh, by someone that they didn't know was there and that wasn't there after, as far as they could see. And so that's really amazing. This account here, and many others, similar accounts. Um, I had one that I shared in the previous show where someone was basically playing around, climbing on all the rocks and things around a trail out in the middle of nowhere, and they didn't realize they were in danger until someone yelled at them to grab on, and they did. They latched onto some kind of a branch of a tree, is what they thought, and they were pulled to safety. And they didn't even know at the time they were in danger until they were walking around. And they saw the place where they had been at, and they would have fallen onto a bunch of rocks. if this unseen presence hadn't saved them. So it really is amazing. Uh, and I don't know. It's just the question is how and then why, and we don't really have clear answers for that. I mean, there's possibilities, but um, but it's amazing. And these are the kinds of accounts I like to share because if nothing else, if no other accounts that people ever share anywhere online or I ever share online, if you want to rule out or toss out any number of experiences people have and say that anything unexplained or paranormal or supernatural is automatically evil, well then why did things like this happen? Why do people get saved? It really is amazing, and this is part of why I do these shows to show that it's not just all negative things. Sometimes it's neutral, sometimes it's positive, sometimes it is negative. I'm not discounting the um, that negative things happen. I've had a couple of experiences, uh, but anyway, so that's part of the purpose of this show to begin with is to point that out and to share those kinds of experiences when I find them. So let's get on to the next one here, and it's a longer one. This one says, "My grandma passed away very recently. My mom was there, but I sadly wasn't, and have felt very bad about it. But some odd things happened since. 10 minutes after she passed, my mom got a text from my grandma with only the sad emoji. I had posted about this in a spiritual group, and a lady told me that this text didn't come from my grandma, but from another earlier deceased man in the family who had something to do with anything technical, which could be either my mom's father or grandfather. The text was sent to show sadness for the people who my grandma left behind. That's fascinating. I'll get back to that in here as we go finish the story, but this true story. But she also told me this, and this is regarding that person that they interacted with on a social media in a group, a platform in a group. You will dream about her, and she will show signs. 7 days after her passing, I had a dream where I met her in a mall. I was in a hurry to go home, so I chatted shortly, but I kept saying, I need to go home. As I walked through the door of the mall, my grandma kept standing behind it and looking at me as if she wanted to come with me, but couldn't, and she seemed sad I had to go. As I walked out of the street and kept looking back at her, where I saw her still looking at me with her hands on the glass door, like she wanted me to come back. She got smaller and smaller in the distance the further I walked, but she never once walked away. To me, this seems like I met her on the other side briefly in my dream, but it wasn't my time yet, which explains my hurry to go home and her being sad I had to go. Then the day after that was her funeral. As her coffin was lowered into the ground and we said our last goodbyes and put down the rose, my husband came and stood next to me and our son, and then a dragonfly landed on my sleeve. It sat there for almost a minute, and we both looked at it, amazed. Dragonflies aren't seen that much here, let alone have one sit on you. I later did a web search, and it said dragonflies are seen as symbolism for the bridge between this world and the spirit world, symbolizing change, the soul of the dead morphing. So the lady was right. I got a sign and a dream. And that's where that one ends. The the mall is a fascinating uh, aspect to this. I've never heard, I don't think, of the other side, a meeting place on the other side being described as a mall. I have heard of waiting rooms and even stadiums and parks and things. And if you think about that, a mall kind of a setting, that's where people are coming and going and staying for periods of time and then moving on. So I wonder, they don't say in this account here, I wonder if maybe there's some kind of, I don't know, fond memories of the family being together in a mall kind of a setting, and that's why this was done. This happened this way. I don't know, but yeah. So it seems possible. The writer there seems to have some decent ideas about um, why things happened the way they did in that dream, and then the text. So often now we have accounts of technology being affected by non-physical beings of some kind or other, whether it is the spirits of people or other beings. It's hard to say all the time, but that is becoming more and more common, and I think that's happening as technology is becoming more and more common. And more people, as we go forward, are growing up with it, not even just having it sort of, as in earlier generations, having uh, computerized devices around. There are people now that have been born in recent times that computers have basically been around, and internet especially. Uh, Advanced sort of smart technology, so that's as they call it. But either way, advanced computers have been around and available to the public now for a good, I don't know, 15, 20 years, something like that. And I think we're only going to see more of this interaction between the unexplained, the paranormal, the supernatural, and technology. And yet, still, you have these experiences people have with animals, with creatures that are, in depending on who you talk to, said to symbolize or be signs of the whatever comes after this physical existence and contact with it, and seeming to be a messages from loved ones that passed on, using animals to sort of give a sense of comfort to people, um, and by using them in certain ways. Birds, even cats I've heard of outside, just any dogs, just any animals, butterflies, dragonflies. I never heard of the dragonfly symbolism, but I don't doubt it. There's so much out there in this world that um, says you don't know until you look it up. So, so yeah, that's an amazing one there, and I don't doubt it. Let me see how big the next two are. They're fairly short. We have about 5 minutes left, so we'll do this. Um, this one says, for months, every time I meditated in my room, a black cat with golden eyes would appear in the window. He never meowed. He just stared at me while I entered a deep state of meditation. When I finished, he disappeared. One day I decided to record it, but nothing appeared in the video. Just me, meditating. I asked my neighbors if anyone had a cat like that. Nobody knew him. I checked cameras. I even left food. Nobody ever saw him. The strangest thing is that since then, every time I meditate, I feel a soft weight on my legs, as if he was still there, even though I had never been able to touch him. Have I imagined all this? Or has anyone else felt presences that seem real while meditating? And that's where that one ends. This one is amazing to me because I had an experience of meditation once where for somehow, I don't know even how I did it, I did go into some kind of a trance, and this shadow figure leaned over me and appeared and just leaned over me. And it's, it's, they just leaned over and then stood back up again and then was gone. Going back to the previous story, the quantum alchemist says, "Wow, definitely sounded like she contacted her grandma on the other side." Yeah, seems like that. So meditation is a fascinating thing to me because so many people swear by it. I had that experience and I didn't care for it, so I haven't tried to meditate since then. And so yeah, I don't know, but that's an amazing experience. I wonder if that's some kind of a spirit guide being or guardian regarding the one with the meditation there. I don't know, but sounds like it's not nothing negative so far, which is amazing. So hopefully it stays that way, and if it helps the person, then hopefully it continues. Want to get this last one in here before we stop. This one says, "This happened to me when I was in 6th or 7th grade, and to this day, I still don't know how to explain it. At the time, I lived with my parents in a small rental house in Vietnam. Like many rental houses here, we had a sleeping loft above the main room with a steep, straight staircase. I had a habit of sleeping with my blanket pulled over my head and neck, completely covered. That night was just like any other. I climbed to the loft, got under the blanket, and fell asleep. Then I woke up, but I wasn't on the loft. I was lying on the floor, right between my mom and dad. The house was silent. The lights were off. Everything was still. My dad is a very light sleeper. Even a small sound would wake him up. If I had climbed down the stairs or moved during the night, he would have noticed, but he didn't. Still dazed, I asked my mom, "Did you carry me down there or down here?" She said, "No. Why?" I quietly walked back up to the loft, confused and uneasy. And then I saw my blanket and pillow were still there, perfectly placed, just as I had left them. It looked like I had never moved. I got scared, but I was too sleepy to process it all, so I lay back down and slept. The next day, I asked my mom again. She remembered me asking the same question during the night, but she insisted that neither she nor my dad had carried me down. I was already quite heavy at that age, and it wouldn't have been easy for them to lift me, especially not in the middle of the night. And if I had sleepwalked, someone would have noticed, but no one did. Until now, nothing like this has ever happened again. It was just once, but it felt real, too real. I still wonder what really happened that night. Did I sleepwalk through another layer of reality? Was it a glitch in the world, or was something else at work? Something I can't understand. Whatever it was, it has never left my memory. That is all the time we have for this episode. Thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal. Take care.